Interestingly enough, my parents, I grew up in Brookfield, went to Brookfield East High School, class of '84, and then went to University of Wisconsin. But most of my family is still very conservative, and my parents are still very conservative. But it's interesting that the tone has changed a lot. My brother is a school teacher in West Allis, and when this whole budget repair bill was announced and the details of Act 10, well now Act 10, were made public, West Allis sent its teachers a notice saying what may end up happening is we will lay everybody off and then rehire as needed, based on where you're at as far as your level and the needs of the district. So my brother, who has 3 kids, went for about 4 months not knowing whether he would have a job. So he was rehired, being a male elementary school teacher. He was one of the few, but that's changed their minds. And I think what's happening now is causing a lot of people to wake up. And it's actually because of my father that the focus on the story became Don Taylor. Because the first blog I wrote about Waukesha County was on the Kathy Nicholas, Scott Jensen, David Prosser connections. And just all kind of the inner workings there, going into basically the one-party rule in Waukesha County. And so the Isthmus asked me to, basically the Isthmus asked me to write a piece on Waukesha County, but more of an objective, historical look as to why the politics are what they are and where they're going. So when I was with my family back in sometime in June or July, and we were talking about this piece, my dad said, I remember being at, I can't remember the name of the restaurant, it was a little diner, it's no longer in existence, but, and having a cup of coffee, and he said, sitting behind me in a booth were Don Taylor and 2 members of the school board, the Waukesha School Board. And he said they were talking about the fact that the Hispanic students who were fairly new, that were struggling to get through, and they were trying to think of ways to help these people. And my dad said he overheard Don Taylor say, it doesn't matter, just get them through because they will be the good cheap labor we need for the foundry. This would have been back in the 70s. Okay? And my dad said he almost fell off his stool. And he said from that moment on, they had a business at that point. They took their money out of Waukesha State Bank and they went someplace else. And my dad said that stuck with me. And he said, I think that the guy you want to look at is Don Taylor. The influence of Don Taylor is so great that we don't know how much money the Waukesha County conduit puts into state elections and campaigns, for the sole reason that the conduit was set up as a way to take a lot of individual contributions, lump them into one large contribution from the conduit special interest in one check, but it all gets reported as an individual contribution. So if the candidate doesn't check that this contribution is from a conduit on the box, then it goes down as an individual contribution. And Mike McCabe at Wisconsin Democracy Campaign says they have no idea how to quantify that money.
By the way, Mike McCabe will be here on December 5th.
Oh, Mike is great. And any questions about me? So the conduit has actually, not a lot of people know this, the conduit has surpassed PACs in the influence they have on Wisconsin state politics. And it really took off in the mid-90s when Scott Jensen was running for office. Scott Jensen took the conduit and perfected it as the way to contribute. So the influence that the counties had is has been oversized based on the population, just because of the money. And the interesting, and I think the broadest thing to take away right now, is that what you see happening today with Scott Walker's policies is a direct result of the Don Taylor type of ideology in politics that started back in the 60s. And it has taken this long to come to fruition. Scott Jensen told me that Don Taylor was never really interested in the politics or the policy. That it became a personal relationship. That Don was at his kids' confirmations, he was at their high school graduations, he was at weddings, he was at family events, and that they were really close. And I heard the same thing from other politicians that Don Taylor had come into contact with. And I think the translation to take away from that is that with a lot of the most powerful people in the party today, this is not about politics, and it's not about jobs, it's not about the economy. This is about an ideological struggle. And this is the term I used in a blog that I wrote, and I can say that because it's a blog and I can be as extreme as I want, but it's a crusade.
It's okay, Clive.
That what is being engaged in right now is a crusade to bring a Southern-style Mississippi politic, a Haley Barbour type of politic, to the state of Wisconsin and the Midwest. And Wisconsin is the testing ground because in Illinois, as much as Scott Walker likes to compare Illinois to Wisconsin, there's still a little bit of kick left in the Democrats in Illinois. It's very slight and it's really being co-opted by corporate influence, but it's there. Wisconsin, they were able to achieve a clean sweep.
In the Chicago market primarily, right?
Actually, with Rahm Emanuel as mayor in Chicago, he's the king of privatization and free trade. He's the man that wrote NAFTA.
Yeah.
So if you want to connect, free trade, loss of jobs, and what is happening in Chicago now with breaking the teachers union, privatizing waste collection, the parks, that's Rahm Emanuel. So he's.
So where does that leave Obama? I mean, since he was.
Well, we can get to that later.
Okay.
That's jumping way ahead of me. So here, I kind of thought of it as a crusade because it is largely an ideological battle. Look at the jobs special session.
Yeah.
There's not much to look at.
Right, but there's a lot to look at. There's a lot to look at in social engineering.
Right.
Right. Concealed carry, the Castle Doctrine.
Abstinence only.
Abstinence only education,
Yeah, right.
which Rebecca Clayfish, that's her big mantra. But all these things are things that have been coming out of this Deep South type of politic. And what else comes out of the Deep South type of politic is the one-party rule. And that's kind of what has evolved out of this kind of Don Taylor, Scott Jensen mentality of politics. And that is, if you agree with my ideology, and you're good-looking, and you're charismatic, and you can handle yourself in front of a crowd, then I'm going to put my money behind you. Look at Leah Vukmir. She literally gets all her ideas from an ALEC convention, and she won't admit it. But every piece of legislation that she's offered can be traced directly back to an American Legislative Exchange Council model piece of legislation. So again, if you take nothing away from that, is to kind of understand how that it's evolved into where we are today and the politics that are going on in Madison and all over the state. People like Glenn Grothman and Leah Vukmir and Scott and Jeff Fitzgerald and all these, when you listen to them talk, this is an ideological crusade that they really firmly believe. And the danger of that is that now it becomes a religion to them. And when it becomes a religion, the ends justify the means. So when you read that has been recently reported that there are some Tea Party Republicans from southeastern Wisconsin that are going to start circulating recall petitions and then shredding them, which is a Class C felony.
Yeah.
That they're serious about this, and they're going to stop at nothing to, including fraud, to derail this. But the reason that they're doing it, obviously, is because they know that the pushback is real, and the polling numbers tell you that it's real. Scott Walker is in real trouble. One thing that is very unexpected is this pushback. Is because of this kind of messianic attitude that they have about their mission. Because they and Scott Jensen really kind of solidified for me and confirmed for me that they really believe that, first of all, not only what they're doing is right, but that they have the people on their side. They very much believe in the silent majority. And obviously polling has shown otherwise recently. But there is a certain arrogance that comes with that that whole attitude of, the ends justify, the means justify the end, or the end justifies the means. Thank you.
Yeah.
And their whole the whole system that they put into place, and really the critical thing is this neighbor-to-neighbor, eye-to-eye contact, because and in my opinion, it's started a little late. We're at where we should have been at a few months ago in getting people out and about and getting people out talking to each other and talking about what the issues are, because obviously it's not going to make the media. The Journal Sentinel is doing an okay job on some issues. The education thing, they've been on top of the John Doe investigation and a lot of things like that. But on the real core values issues, the media is MIA. On the way from the train station to here, I got a phone call with somebody telling me that it sounds like Rick Chandler, who's the Secretary of Revenue here in Wisconsin, intervened and dropped a lawsuit the state had filed against Georgia Pacific for hundreds of millions of dollars in back taxes and penalties.
Everybody know who owns Georgia Pacific?
Who owns Georgia Pacific?
Koch
Koch
brothers.
Industries. What a surprise.
I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you.
And
Shocked.
That's right.
Let's see. The regional president for Georgia Pacific sits on the board of Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, and Rick Chandler was Scott McCallum's revenue secretary, and after serving for Governor McCallum, went on to be a lobbyist. And guess who he was a lobbyist for?
Koch Industries.
No, Wisconsin Manufacturers and
Oh,
Commerce.
of course.
So these are things that you need to communicate to people is, don't tell me that you're going to drop all these children from Badger Care and poor people from Badger Care when Georgia Pacific owes hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes that you just dropped the case on. How many people would that put on Badger Care?
Probably cover all of them.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah. How many teachers? How many school districts? If you repeat a lie enough times, people will believe it.
Yeah.
Just like it's working Wisconsin.
Especially-
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, the website. The website is
Commercials.
preposterous.
Horrible.
The sky didn't fall.
I put in I put in a blog when he was in Chicago at the breakfast where all the
And he got mic checked?
when Ed Sadlowski showed up, and
He got mic checked. Yeah.
he got Well, so after the protesters marched out and everything, he was taking some questions. Somebody asked him if he was concerned about the recall. He said, "No, I can just run on my record." and he said that he would be happy to compare the situation in Illinois to the situation in Wisconsin. I went, I wonder exactly what he's talking about. You know, what he would consider his successes. So I emailed Cullen Worley, and it was the governor's press secretary who's under immunity in the John Doe investigation, which is hilarious. Well, he never got back to me, but it was sent to the Department of Workforce Development, and they got back to me, and they said, well, here's some numbers, you know, that might interest you. So here's a link to their website, and it's this marketing page that they've set up as to how Wisconsin is doing so much better than other states, right? The first graph is a graph of state job participation rate. So people in Wisconsin who are eligible to work, who are participating in the workforce. And basically what it showed is that Wisconsin is, you know, 10% higher than the rest of the country. Well, first of all, Wisconsin's always been high in workforce participation. That's not news. The best part was, the graph was from December of 2007 to December of 2010. So Walker had not even, so that was the first graph. The second graph was from an Ernst & Young survey that showed corporate tax rates, how low Wisconsin was in corporate tax rates. Well, the survey was from 2009. So they were displaying old data. So I emailed them back. I said, look, the numbers you gave me are not even relevant to the governor because he wasn't even in office yet. And I said, can you send some clarification? And he sent me some numbers that were really interesting. And I did blog about this earlier this week. And I would encourage you to look at it because it has links to all the DWD tables. And here's what's happening, is that anything that puts the governor in good light at all is being highlighted. And the flip side of the story, which is the real part of the story, is being suppressed. And that's the information that people need to share. For example, the unemployment rate in Wisconsin is 7.8% preliminary for September. It's 10% in Illinois. Well, Wisconsin has a lower unemployment. Well, Wisconsin had a lower unemployment rate than Illinois when he took office.
Oh, I understand
That's got nothing to do with Scott Walker. What does have something to do with Scott Walker is the fact that since he's taken office, there have been more initial filings for unemployment. In the thousands more. Since he's taken office, the average manufacturing wage has dropped $36 a week. The average manufacturing wage in Wisconsin is now $718 a week. Can you feed a family of 4 on $700 a week?
Before taxes.
Before taxes. Before healthcare premiums. Before 401k deductions because you don't have a pension anymore.
Just healthcare alone for a family of 4 is over $1,000. I mean, it's about
So when you have a company like Generac that says we're gonna create 400 new jobs, and all because of Scott Walker.
And look, but you got to look behind those numbers.
Well, what does Generac do? They make generators. Why is the demand for generators so high? Could it be all the natural disasters that have been happening?
Absolutely.
So global warming's creating jobs. Okay, got it.
Right. Nice. I like the way you can. Not only that, they won't tell anybody how much those jobs pay.
Or if they have benefits.
You know, the people that are planning and administering their job fair is a temp agency.
A temp agent?
Is managing their job fair for them, where they're going to hire these 400 people. They won't tell you how much these people. They say they're family supporting jobs.
They're also temporary jobs. what I've heard.
They won't comment on that.
They're temporary.
It-
They're
that's-
seasonal jobs.
Right. Well, I mean, anecdotally, yes. Factually, we don't know that. But here's what we do know. Generac Corporation, the family that owns Generac, within the last 5 years has donated almost $140,000 to GOP candidates. Surprise, surprise. Guess who's on that list? Rance Priebus.
Yep.
Now, why would Generac need to write a $2,500 check to Rance Priebus? Did he need money to run for chairman of the National Republican Party? Mike Gableman is on that list. Annette Ziegler is on that list. Scott Walker is on that list. Leah Vukmir is on that list.